Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains in Small Places, and today I'm going to be making some sourdough bread bowls, and they're perfect to put soup in, especially on a cold winter or rainy day. And I wanted to share this recipe with you. Try to make sourdough with fresh milled flour 100% easier. So sourdough with fresh milled flour has kind of been one of those things that's taken me a while to get right. I did sourdough really well with just plain white flour. Disclaimer, I'm not a professional sourdough baker, and it can be controversial if you're not making those beautiful loaves. I know you've all seen them that have the awesome scoring that looks like artwork and just gorgeous sourdough loaves. So what about the rest of us? Well, the rest of us that are just regular bakers that want to make good, healthy food for our family, I guess I'm speaking to you because this is what that recipe is for. So I'm going to share with you my fresh milled flour sourdough recipe that I have been working on for quite a while, and I want to share it with you. This one is to make bread bowls, but I have pretty much the same recipe if you want to make just one bread loaf of the regular sourdough. So I'm just going to show you a few tips and tricks of how I do it. First, I want to start out by apologizing to you that most of this video is filmed in the wrong view. I'm sorry about that, so if you stick with me, I'll try my best to not let it happen in future videos. So if you've been following me at all, you know that my sourdough starter's name is Bubbles, and I like to start out by feeding Bubbles the night before for two reasons before this recipe. First, to make sure that he's nice and strong, and second, so I can make certain that I have enough starter for my recipe. So, this, I guess, would be making the leaven. Just make sure you have enough to save for a different recipe in the future also. What I do is take 50 grams of filtered water and 50 grams of fresh milled flour. Typically, I'll use hard white wheat, but sometimes I'll just use whatever I've milled that day. Then I mix about a tablespoon of my starter and mix all three to combine so that there's no dry flour left. The next morning, I check to make sure the Bubbles is all nice and bubbly. And I weigh out 500 grams of hard white wheat and mill that, and then I should end up with 500 grams of fresh milled flour. Then I will pour 400 grams of filtered room temperature water into a bowl. I say filtered because we don't want chlorinated water. That's important because it can kill your starter. Now I'm going to take that leaven that we made last night and place it in the water mixture. Oftentimes it will float because of all the air that's in your starter. I just stir that in with my hands because, as you can see, you don't really need a mixer for sourdough. I just like to use my hands. Okay, and now I'm just going to pour the flour that we just milled into my water mixture and stir that up again with my hands, and then I'll cover it and let it sit at room temperature for 30 to 45 minutes. This step is called the autolyse step. And while that sits and autolyzes, I'll measure out 25 grams of room temperature filtered water and 10 grams of sea salt. And I'm going to stir that in to start to let the salt dissolve. Alright, and now that that has sat for a bit, I will add in the salt water mixture and just work it in with my hands. As you can see, the dough is kind of already changing. I'm going to cover this and let it sit for about 30 to 60 minutes. I'm not really picky about how long it sits. I just kind of come back to it here and there as I go. But every 30 to 60 minutes after this point, I'm going to do what's called a pull and fold technique. So I'm going to grab the dough and pull it up and lay it over itself as best as I can. As you can see, the dough will be a little tighter at the beginning and start to get a more loose and relaxed and stretchy towards the end. I'm just going to turn the bowl a quarter turn, fold it again, and do that around the bowl about one time. Cover it. I'll repeat this pull and fold technique about 4 to 6 more times. You want to make sure that the dough has risen about 20 to 30% and it's very stretchy and soft. This usually will take about 4 to 6 hours at this point. And each time as I'm working it, you can see the dough is stretchier and easier to work with. We're not really kneading at all. It's just good old pure time is what develops the gluten here. So while we wait, I wanted to catch you up a little on where we've been. While traveling through Texas, you just have to stop at Buc-ee's, right? You could find just about anything here, including some decent barbecue. Then we headed through Louisiana and stopped at another Harvest Host location, John Schneider's Ranch. We love this little piece of paradise. We have stayed here probably 3 or 4 different occasions, and every time it's been wonderful. Okay, now back to the sourdough bread bowls. I dusted a clean flat work surface with some freshly milled rice flour that I just milled and cut the dough into 4 equal-ish pieces. I started cupping and shaping each loaf and let them rest for about 10 to 20 minutes, and this is called the bench rest. You can see how I cup the dough ball and just turn it a little bit just to form it into the bowl shape that we're looking for. Don't worry, I will put a link in the description box below with a printable recipe for these directions, so you don't have to write it all down or memorize anything. Just print it off and you'll have it right there. So I'm going to repeat this shaping 1 to 2 more times, and I'm going to shape it. And as you shape it, you will notice that the dough ball kind of remembers the shape. Then you know it's ready to move on to the next step. During this time, we want to preheat your oven to 480 degrees Fahrenheit, and make sure you get a little small oven-safe bowl and put some water in that as your oven preheats. This will help create the steam in the oven, and that's what gives us that nice hard crust on the outside. And that's what also holds in all our delicious fillings on the inside. So now we're going to coat each dough ball with a little bit of rice flour, and I'm going to line the baking sheet with parchment paper so nothing sticks. I'm going to gently place each bread bowl on the parchment paper and use a sharp blade to score the top of each bread bowl. Just do a little plus sign or a cross or whatever you feel like putting on top there. And we're going to bake the bread bowls for about 15 minutes at that 480 degree Fahrenheit temperature. Then we're going to leave the bread bowls in, but we're going to decrease the oven to about 425 degrees Fahrenheit and continue baking for 20 to 25 more minutes. Now you want to check the internal temperature of the bread bowls to make sure that they reach 210 degrees Fahrenheit or pretty close. That's how you know they're done, and everybody's oven's a little bit different, so your bake time may vary from my bake time. Now I'm going to let the bread bowls cool completely. I like to let them cool on a wire rack, that way they don't get condensation on the bottom of the bread bowls. And once they're cooled, it's time to cut or carve out that hole that will become our little soup bowl vessel. So just be careful when you're carving it, not to carve all the way through the bottom, because we obviously don't want our soup to fall out the bottom. This would be great with macaroni and cheese also, or anything you can think of to put in these bread bowls. Here, we made potato, broccoli, and cheese soup. I will link that recipe below as well. It's a great recipe. It was perfect on this cold, rainy day that we had it. And it's great because you can use it on Meatless Monday or a vegetarian option, or you can put any vegetables in the soup. So it makes a great option. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you won't miss any other of my content. Also, if you want to check out my blog at grainsandsmallplaces.net, you can find this recipe in a printable form and a whole bunch of my other recipes on there. So, thank you for stopping by Grains and Small Places. Goodbye.